Okay. I think hopefully we've only got 2 more videos worth of content out of this. The rest of this list. It's a bit of a stretch, but we will see how it goes. In any case, you and I are polar opposites. I read like 2 volumes of the manga for this and dropped it because I thought the art was too basic. I thought the story was fine. And I think this is Lapin Track doing the anime adaptation, so let's see if they manage to pull out a few tricks to make it look a little more visually interesting. Yeah, that's pretty much exactly how I feel about the manga, as I do with this anime. It is perfectly average. I don't necessarily dislike it, but I'm not exactly intrigued by it either. I got an episode and a half into You and I Are Polar Opposites, which I read. Where is it? Yeah, right down there on that shelf there. Maybe less than 2 volumes of the manga. And my complaints about the anime are pretty similar to my complaints about the manga, where the subject matter is fine. It's mildly humorous, but not hugely so. I think it's got a decent romance or start to a romance to it, but I'm not particularly hooked on either character. And more than anything else, the art is very basic, and there's not there. I will give the anime credit. They are trying to do something with it. There is some creativity in the visuals. I will give them credit for that, but I don't think there is enough. For character designs and an art style this basic, you kind of have to give a little bit more oomph to the animation or the color design or something like that. Occasionally there's some nice shots of the main character, Suzuki, but that's about it. Honestly, I'm not even sure how much the anime could do with this art style, because it's so loose and not very it's not crisp and clean, but it's also not sketchy or ethereal or anything it's just kind of simple and bland. It's an issue I have with the manga big time, and I really don't know how the anime could have fixed it, and I guess they didn't. It doesn't look bad. Well, it's not failing at being animated. Let's put it that way. It's just not, I'm just not enjoying the aesthetic that it's putting out. So, generally mid on all accounts, unfortunately. I think it's kind of cute, but just kind of cute really isn't going to cut it. Alright. Polar Opposites, unfortunately, coming off the list. Next, Hell's Paradise Season 2. The first season of this anime was solid, but I had some complaints about it. And the first season also ended right around the time that I dropped the manga because I didn't like the direction the story was heading. So hopefully it improves on all of my complaints about last time. Maybe? Okay, well that was more of that. Just finished up Hell's Paradise Season 2, which I thought was going to wrap up this series because I knew the first season had gotten to just around the halfway point of the manga, But apparently it was slightly shorter of the halfway point than I thought it was. Because I checked the wiki, and apparently there's still like 16-ish more chapters left to adapt after this season. Because I got to like 3 episodes from the end, and I'm like, I don't think they're gonna wrap this up properly. They haven't announced a movie yet. I haven't seen anything like that, but that's the only thing that it can be, unless it's like a TV special, like just 4 episodes max. Maybe 5. It's either that or it's like a tight 90-minute or 100-minute movie we're gonna get. If we get it, I assume we will, since we're so close to the end and this show seems to be popular, although I didn't see anybody on my timeline talk about it at all for the entirety of the season. Like, I did not see. I assume that's just my circle of Twitter people and Blue Sky people, because I'm fairly certain the show is still popular, but it's wild that I didn't even see the corporate accounts talking about it. That algorithm do be doing things. But yeah, this is pretty much more of what we got from season 1. My biggest concern with this season was the Gabimaru memory thing. I actually had to go back and rewatch my entry for the seasonal wrap-up show for the first season, because apparently that was almost 3 years ago that the first season came out. And I even had to like watch some like recap videos on YouTube, because after the first episode I'm like, I don't remember enough of what's going on. So I did that. I think that's the first time I've ever actually done that. I think that is the first time I've ever watched a recap video for something in order to watch the next season. That's wild. Anyway, I don't have a whole lot. Well, we'll see if I have some interesting things to say. I guess to address some points I made in those videos, in my previous entry, yes, the Gabimaru losing his memory thing was what got me to drop the manga in the first place, because I was like, well, this fucking sucks. And also like the hinting, ooh, is his wife actually real, or did they just do genjutsu on him? I think that was more so what annoyed me, because I was like, either it's true and you've taken away the core thing about why I like Gabimaru, or it's not true and you're just wasting all of our time. Turns out it was option B so far, because we only got, I think there was only like 2-ish episodes in the last season that had his memory loss in it, and then he gets his memory back in the second episode of this one after his Tao is restored by Sagiri. I'm happy, at least if it had dragged on longer than that, I don't know how much more of this series I could have gotten through it, because memory loss Gabimaru is fucking boring and lame. I didn't think it was interesting or fun or like intriguing. I was just kind of like, well, he's going to get his memory back soon eventually, and so I'm just waiting for that to happen, because in the interim it's not fun. It was I guess I'll give it credit for being like, oh yeah, I guess this is how a trained ninja would act if they lost their memory in the middle of a deadly mission. Like the way he just constantly plays it cool and doesn't even reveal that he lost his memory. yeah, I guess that's fine. Uh, I'm just happy we didn't spend too long with that, because he's a really not interesting character when he's just Hollow. Gabimaru the Hollow. Which I guess is kind of the point, but also it's still boring. Also, I fucking hated Neuter Guy this season. The little girl one of the little girl characters. I think she's you know which one. Because she did fucking nothing and just whined a lot of the time. The third to last episode of this season fucking sucked, with the showdown with her and Shion versus one of the Tensen. It was like, I don't understand. Once the Tensen had gotten into as weakened a state as he was at that point, I don't understand why Furugai couldn't just come in and fucking kick the shit out of him. Because, like, I thought I remembered them saying that Furugai's Tao was hindering to that specific Tensen. I thought, but the only difference was, like, Furugai was untrained or whatever. But you could still try. Because I guarantee... Because it's about to cause even more problems now with the big cliffhanger ending of that Tensen, whose name I don't remember. I don't remember any of the Tensen except for Taufa and Jufa. I think that's their names. The ones that fuck all the time. Those are the only ones I remember. But the guy that Shion and Furugai were fighting comes back as a big old giant monster on the cliffhanger ending for this. So it's like, why didn't you just kill him? You could have. I feel like Furugai could have. I don't understand. Explain to me why she couldn't. I would love to know why. Because it feels stupid. And it feels like an excuse to have like a... Not necessarily a non-violence ending to that fight, but more of a like a... You don't have to completely destroy your body to finish the mission fight thing. Like, I think that's what it was going for. But also, I think it was more so just so that that Tensen would still be alive for later. Don't like it. I hated it. Aside from that, though, I did like most of the fights in this. I will say the last episode, the fights just get really confusing and like not as well choreographed as previous entries. Mostly because it's like a battlefield now instead of just like one-on-one or two-on-two fights, which I get, but it does make the choreography less interesting. But before that final episode, the battles were pretty solid. Choreography's really strong. Solid animation work. Not nearly as many compositing issues as the previous season. Still a few, but not nearly as many. I think Mappa is getting better at compositing. Or maybe they just had solid schedules this time around. Because I don't remember... See, this is just like my brain immediately flushes non-essential data down the toilet with each new season. I don't remember what the last Mappa productions were before Jujutsu Kaisen and Hell's Paradise this season. I'm sure it wasn't that distant in the past, but I just don't remember what they were. God, what were they? I'll look that up later. But yeah, I'm still sort of iffy on the... Well, not iffy. I'm still lukewarm on the all the monster designs and stuff, because it's like, yes, they're intricate and very detailed, but I just don't think they look cool. They just look like very detailed, intricate messes. And if that's the point, sure, man, you did it. I just don't think that's this particular style of monster design is not my cup of tea. Yeah, this sure was an action anime. I don't know why I'm struggling to like. I liked when we started getting into the battle anime parts of it with the strateginess of it all. This is the part of it where it's like we actually have a power system. Like we introduced the power system in the back half of season 1, and now we're finally getting into like the details of the power system and how it works with the 5 elements and how each flavor of Tao either hinders or restores another. It's basic stuff that you've seen 100 times before if you know anything about like actual Taoism and like early spiritual magic beliefs. But it's still fun. It's a classic formula for a reason. I don't really have anything else to say about that other than it works until the show decides like we're just going to ignore it for the sake of a more dramatic fight, I guess. A la Noodle Guy. Pretty much nobody died in this season of our protagonists. I don't think anybody died this season, which is odd. Are we just saving it all for like the last couple chapters? Because there's no way all of these people make it out. There's absolutely no way. My prediction is Gabimaru does not make it out. Like, he dies at the very, very last minute. We'll see how that goes. And I think the little girl, whose name I forget, will make it to the mainland. Neuter Guy will definitely make it out. Shion, I don't see him making it out. Or Gantetsu Guy? I think that's his name. Big tall dude. Who unapologetically horny. Just he really appreciates tits and asses. Good for him. Also, I don't remember if they did this last season, but this season pulls a Ranma remake with the no nipples. Cowards. You're cowards. But it's just not even like censor bars or anything, or like smoke censoring everything. Just chest, breasts, but no nipples. I have nothing to say on that other than cowards way out. And it's not, you can't even make the excuse of like, oh, maybe the Tensen just don't have nipples. That's not how their bodies are structured. Because they also do it with Yuzuriha. When she's like on the verge of death, you see her full chest and just no nipples. That's a human. She should have nipples. Cowardly. Absolutely cowardly. Yeah, I guess this was a fun time. Frustrating and Also, I don't like any of the new Yamada Asaemon characters. I think they're very boring. Not interesting at all, really. Except maybe the sneaky guy, the guy with the purple hair. He might be interesting. I don't like the leader guy at all. He's just really straightforward and in a boring kind of way. And well, actually, also I don't like the arc that his character takes, I guess, because it's like you should have like I don't know why he didn't expect the deaths of his comrades when he showed up on the island, but he like immediately fucking freaks out that his like master or his teacher died, and then just goes full sicko mode, is like, I want to inflict pain on as much pain as possible. He does the thing where he turns his like puts a bunch of nicks in his sword to make the cuts more painful. Cool, man. Yeah, this was a decently fun action series that had some hiccups to it. A lot more hiccups than I was hoping for. I did like Talfa and Chufa's sort of thing of like, they actually are kind of relatively sane compared to the other Tencent of like, hey, this violence thing is not great. I don't like this, kinda. But we're just going to inevitably desensitize ourselves to it just so we can stay with this in-group here and not be considered a failure. And I will say, the fucking scenes are kinda hot. Wish they had nipples. the Bochujutsu has been an interesting addition to this series. Or I should say an interesting part of this series. Yeah, I think that's really all I have to say. I guess I'll tune into whatever sequel gets announced just because it's so short. If it had been like a full season left, I don't know if I would continue this. But might as well just end it. But that's for later. For now, yeah, it's fine. Alright, Hell's Paradise Season 2 is complete. And we're not going super far up on the list. We're going with the... Come on. We're going in the number 11 spot with a strong 6. It's fine. It is a passable action series. Will I watch the movie / TV whatever when it eventually gets announced? Maybe. Probably. We'll see. Alright. Next is, the Villainess is adored by the Prince of the Neighbor Kingdom. Yep. Probably does exactly what it says in the title. And if I just checked, and I think this is a Studio Dean title. So, we'll see how good it looks. That one's just incredibly bland and boring. Very, very boring. I don't... See, like, a lot of times with the Villainous subgenre, from what I've noticed, at least with the good ones, is at least the Villainous herself has some sort of spunk to her that makes her, like, interesting to follow, or has some kind of weird personality quirk that makes her at least, like, stand out a little bit. Not with this one. This one, main character is very bland and passive and boring. Oh, so boring. Even her acting is boring. Did I mention this show's boring? God, it's so boring. Why are you so boring? let's move on.
Okay. Generic villainous anime off the list. Next up is Kaya-chan Isn't Scary. This is a supernatural series, I think, about a kid who probably sees ghosts, just based on what I saw of the key visual. Not familiar at all with the studio that it came from, and I haven't seen anybody talk about this show. Let's see if it's just overlooked.
Ew, gross. No, looks like dog shit. One of the worst looking shows I've seen this season. Did not even make it a minute in. Absolutely bad. Fucking bad. Also, it opens with, it's like kids on, a bunch of kindergartners, and there's a kid on the swing, and a ghost pushes her out of the swing, and she gets hurt. But the speed at which she hits the ground, and just the velocity of it, made me fucking cackle. It was fucking hilarious how dumb it looked. Yeah, no, this is really bad.
Alright, get this thing off the list. Good fucking bye. Alright. Princession Orchestra. I've actually been watching this one for about like a month or two now. I've been slowly watching it for a while because it's a 48 episode magical girl series from Shin Onuma, weird ass director extraordinaire. I'm close to the end of it now, so let's just jump into my thoughts on this new magical girl series.
Alright. Brand new magical girl franchise that I kind of hope will be a franchise. Maybe. I don't... Honestly, the way it's structured in terms of like the setting doesn't really lend to it being a franchise. So if this is just a one-off, then you know what? Solid one-off. Just finished up Princession Orchestra, also known as, I believe, Princession Orchestra. This is the new 4-core magical girl franchise by Shin Onuma, protege of Akiyuki Shinbo, and basically the lead director at Studio Silverlink for the majority of its existence. Directed stuff like Baka and Test, and a lot of their earlier comedies. Haven't seen him around for a hot minute. Maybe he was just taking his time to do this. I believe he did Muno no Nana, which was a series that I didn't care for that much. But Silverlink is certainly a studio. Silverlink is a studio that I care quite a bit about, despite not actually liking most of their catalog. They are always trying to do something, and I respect the hell out of that. They don't follow trends all that much. Sometimes they originate trends. Like, they were the one... Like, I went back into their, like, mail page. I was like, what's the last Silverlink thing that I watched? And the last thing I watched was the Hamefura movie. And then before that, in 2022, it was When Will Ayumu Make His Move, which was from the author of Takagi-san. And then before that, for basically, like, a decade going back, maybe even more, actually more than a decade going back, the only thing that I had finished from Silverlink was the 2 seasons of Hamefura. So, it's a studio that I care a lot about in theory, not so much in practice. But, as I said, sometimes they are the starter of the trends, with Hamefura being, I believe, the start of the Villainess trend, being the first big adaptation of that subgenre of isekai. And it was really solid. One of my favorite Silverlink shows. See, that's the thing. With Silverlink, most of the time, I don't always like the things that they do, but when they have a good thing, they really have a good thing. Like Baka and Test, Hamefura. Not so much this one, but I still like it. Princession Orchestra is a nice, hefty magical girl series, 48 episodes, centered around singing magical girls. Which, coincidentally, mostly lined up with the broadcast of You and Idol Precure, which was a show that I thought was very average and not all that interesting. Especially when it came to the music stuff. I didn't think... I thought the songs in You and Idol Precure were fine. I can't really remember any of them. Maybe that's because I didn't watch as many episodes of that as I did Princession. But the songs in this are kind of bangers. They got some good, catchy J-pop tunes going on here. I think Elements Garden was the producer for most and writers for most of the tracks, if not all. So that tracks, they've been around for a while. Done a lot of stuff with anime OPs and EDs. And probably a lot of insert songs as well. But it's just really solid, like, idol-ish J-pop kind of stuff. And fits the tone of the series really well, which is... The tone for this one is interesting, because it's generally in the typical age range for a magical girl series, so like young girls. But then also sometimes it will have these gothic elements that make you think like, oh, maybe it's like like a shift the age demographic up by like 1 year. So it's like just the faintest hint of an edge. The absolute faintest hint of it. And you know what? We haven't had a lot of gothic influences in anime as of late. That was definitely more a thing in the late 90s and 2000s, I believe. Maybe going into the 2010s, but that would be stretching it. That kind of died with Alley Project. Although Alley Project did have a track. They did the thing for, what do you call it? Irina the Vampire Cosmonaut. Weird pick, but... yeah, I generally liked the vibe of this series being just a straightforward magical girl show, but occasionally there's some very cool... I'm not going to call them dark elements in terms of like the theme, but dark in terms of the visual presentation. There are a lot of very deep like reds and purples and blues across this color palette, especially during the fight scenes. That makes it not as bright and cheerful as your typical magical girl series. It still has those elements at its core. It's still a bright and cheery magical girl series at the center of it, but visually it's got a little bit more shade to it, let's call it. Which I would definitely attribute to Shin Onuma. He's, again, protege of Akiyuki Shinbo, so he's got some weirdness to him. You can actually see a lot, if you've seen like Baka and Test or another Shinbo project, you will see a lot of his hallmarks in this. In particular, like, sometimes he will do like like the comedy cutaways and stuff. He will do it where the character design is like flattened a lot, and the color design for the character shifts to like a sort of semi-monochromatic kind of feel to it, and then there will be a background with polka dots in it. the background with polka dots is like the big tell for me of like, oh, that's a Shin Onuma thing. Saw it a lot in Baka and Test, and saw it a lot here. So he's still doing that. And you know what? He's pretty much the only one I see doing that, as far as I can remember. So, good on him for sticking with his style. And I really like the character designs for this. They're pretty in line with what you would expect magical girls to look like. But also they're not overly complicated, except for maybe some of the later, like, evolved forms of their designs and stuff. But I like the color design a lot. It's nice and bright without being overly saturated. It's just got a nice warmness to it in like the regular everyday scenes, and then like the more shade of the darker battle scenes is pretty nice. I will say though, Silverlink, usually not the best animators. Now with this one, I would say if this was like a 12 episode series, I think it could have been a lot better looking. But this is a 48 episode series, so you're going to see some jank. And it's Silverlink, so on the whole, the art quality is fine. It's not... There's not a lot of... there's a little bit of meltiness every now and then. But there's never any, like, full-on... never any full-on animation breakdowns. Like, no production meltdowns at any point as far as I can see. Maybe a little bit in the final episodes. But that's only because maybe they were saving up for the last episode, which had a lot of really nice animation and really solid character designs and Sakuga and all that. But also, scattered throughout the series, there are some pretty solid instances of banked animation. Like, in particular, I really like Princess Meteor's final attack with this big rock formation clumping together and then shattering the earth beneath it. I think that's what happens. I just really like the imagery of that. Yeah. It's inconsistent animation quality, but it's rarely outright bad for long stretches of time. Let's put it that way. Because I think this is also Shin Onuma's first 4-core series. This might even be Silverlink's first 4-core series. I'm not entirely sure. And they didn't even do any co-production with other studios as far as I can tell. Because a lot of times I think Silverlink does a lot of stuff with a studio called Connect. Or maybe that was just during the mid to late 2010s. I'm not entirely sure. But, yeah. It could have been a little better, but for what we got, I'm mostly satisfied with what we got out of it. Although I will say the singing scenes, when it's just shots of characters singing, it's definitely lacking, very much. I will say though, most of the time, no CG assets. Like, the only time I ever saw CG assets show up were for the Red Queen and White Queen characters, because their designs were very complicated compared to other designs in the series. And even then, it was only during, like, very brief shots. And it was also composited pretty well. In fact, the entire series is composited pretty well. not a lot of instances, in fact, rarely any instances of like where it's like, oh, this character doesn't look like it's on the background at all. It just sort of looks like it's hovering there. Not any of that really. Um, it's consistent. Well, I will say the aesthetic is consistent in terms of like it all meshing together, which is not something I can say about a lot of anime nowadays. I'm surprised at how much of a rarity it is. But enough about how it looks. What the hell is the show about? It's Alice in Wonderland, but a magical girl series. That's a very, very dumbed down and not at all accurate description of it, but there is some very heavy Alice in Wonderland references. Again, like I said, the Red Queen and the White Queen. The magical world that they go into is Alispia. One of the big bads at the end is named Carol, which I just think is very funny, naming the final bad guy after the author of Alice in Wonderland, which is also inadvertently like a bit of kind of a burn because like Lewis Carroll had some proclivities for young girls, allegedly. So kind of gross, but also I don't think that is in any way what they were going for with this, but I just thought it was kind of funny. And yeah, so this is a. If you I would highly recommend you go watch this. Try out this series. Get to like. I mean, if you don't like it if you dislike it after episode 1, then I can't stop you. But like, if you're like unsure about it, get to like episode 4 or 5 with, where Nagase like joins the crew of the main trio, because I really liked what they did with her character. So everything else spoilers from here on out. But yeah, I really. What was I gonna say? Oh right, I like how the show handles like the non-magical girl parts of it, where it's just like middle schoolers hanging out and being middle schoolers and having fun. Like the dialogue seemed incredibly natural. It felt. I was like, oh, this seems like what a bunch of modern middle schoolers would be doing. Just a little bit of ribbing each other, but also just like having fun. I really enjoyed the dialogue for this series. By the way, there is no stream for this. You are going to have to torrent it. I highly, and there's only 2 available, and only one seeds properly, so it's good to do that one. So it's good that that's the better one. It's Waku something. I forget what it is. That's the subs you should go with. Admittedly, they do take a lot of liberties with some stuff, but the intent is there. They get the intent down, as opposed to the other subgroup. I think Mi something, where I don't think the subber is I think the subber might be ESL, English as a Second Language. Because sometimes it just doesn't make sense. I had to watch their subs for the final episode because Waku takes their time with the subs. They usually come out like a week or so after the broadcast. So I'll definitely have to grab the file for the last one when it finally comes out, though. I'm recording this on, what day is it? April 4th. So it's not out quite yet. And I watched this series over the course of 2 months, watching about an episode a day or so, until I got to today, when it came up in the queue for me to watch, and I binged like the last 8 episodes. Which I think, if you're not really, really digging a Magical Girl series, yeah, I think you can just take it like 1 episode a day. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, I think Magical Girl series in particular benefit a lot from the weekly episode format, because it just paces it out nicely. Anyway, really like the dialogue for the series. The characters are just very fun to watch. Although there is a fairly decent long stretch of episodes where there's 2 other like characters who are essentially counter to the magical girl, our princess magical girls, the princesses. They're the Flower Knights, and it turns out they're 2 of the other girls at our main trio's school, and they really stretch out the "why are you fighting against us" stuff. Now, in fairness, the way that the Flower Knights, Kazahana, what's her name, Sumire and Lily, the way that they respond, I've seen a lot of people respond the way they do on social media, where it's just like they aren't really interested in talking actually, and just assume that the person coming at them is coming at them with ill intent or with bad intentions, and so they just immediately go into defensive mode and want to fight. So I get that, but it was still very frustrating, because it was basically like over the course of like 4 or 5 episodes they advanced a sentence or 2 into getting to the twist about how this world functions and the tragic backstory of why they became the Flower Knights and are fighting against the princesses. But we got there eventually, and they became 2 very fun members of the crew. And then this almost derailed it for me at the very end, where it turned out that the bunny mascot character was basically the final bad before the actual final bad, and like a big fucking plot twist. Which I was like, technically I can see where they were coming from with it, and in the end it wasn't necessarily a like he's actually evil or anything. It was just like he remembered why Alice Pia was in danger in the first place, because the whole plot of the series revolves around like the Red Queen and the White Queen both know that a calamity is going to befall Alice Pia because it has an overflowing abundance of musessence, which is the energy created by the girls who visit Alice Pia, having fun and enjoying their time there. And when too much musessence accumulates, something very bad is going to happen. And so the Red Queen's method is to send her boy band Snatch out with their little minions to take the girls' musessence in order to force an evolution of stronger beings that could counteract whatever is coming. Whereas the White Queen in the second half of the series wants to more evenly distribute musessence so that there isn't any one big like major upswell of it anywhere. Where was I going with that point? I don't remember. In any case, Uh, it was all, in the end, the plot twist with Navier, Naviu, how is it? Naviu. The plot twist with him at the end, it all made sense in the end, but it felt very, very sudden going into it. So that one had me in a questionable state for a little bit of it. Also, I really like Bandersnatch. They're these 4 boy band characters who turn out to actually be LSPians and have lived in that world for a very long time. But they just have really good evil goon image energy to them. I like their camaraderie and how they interact with each other. Very fun. As are the main trio of girls. We got Minamo and I'm already forgetting Shirube, the pink-haired girl, whose name I'm already forgetting, and then Nagase. Nagase was my favorite just because she's the big, bubbly, funny one. They give her all of the comedy bits, and you know what? They're good comedy bits. Very fun. I like them. I don't have a whole lot to say about them in particular. Also, maybe it's because I watched this over the course of 2 months, so some of the earlier stuff is escaping me. But they work really well for this series, and the plethora of side characters that they interact with, and how that enhances their view of Alispia and it being a place for girls to go and express themselves and have fun was very fun to see. I don't think I really have anything else to say other than this, there are a few instances where, and I don't think I would have noticed it if not for one of the previous Magical Girl series I watched just before starting this one. Or actually, I was watching them watching them concurrently, actually. This show takes surprisingly, not a lot of similarities to You and Idol Precure. They're pretty different series despite being long-running Magical Girl anime directed by veteran anime directors about singing magical girls. The similarities mostly end there. It's actually Go Princess Precure that Princession Orchestra takes a lot of influence from. Almost to a suspicious degree. Like, I'm not saying they stole stuff from it or anything, but there's like the line where it's like princesses, they're kind, strong, and beautiful. That gets repeated a lot in both series. And also, Minamo's design is pretty similar to Haruka's design in Go Princess Precure. Not identical, but redheads with tall hair. It's similar. So I think maybe it could be intentional for them to try and evoke parallels to Go Princess Precure, which, if that's the case, bold choice, man, to be like, hey, we're taking homage from one of the best Precure series ever. Because also then that sort of invites comparison. But also, maybe I'm just reading into it a little too much, and it's just because I watched them basically on top of each other. But, yeah, this was a solid Magical Girl series. There were definitely moments where I got bored during some of the scenes, as is custom with Magical Girls. There are always some misses in the episodic nature of it, and I do wish the misses were a little, not necessarily misses, but more so lulls with this one. I wish the lulls were a little less frequent, but they were never frequent enough for me to go like, I don't feel like watching this. It was never like You and Idol Precure. So, yeah, if you are interested in getting into a new Magical Girl series, Shin Onuma's got something for you that you might like.
Alright, Princession Orchestra is complete. And we're gonna put you in the number 12 spot for now with a strong 6. Might bump it up over Hell's Paradise Season 2 if I feel like it, but for now, decently solid Magical Girl series. I liked that. Okay. I already know this particular video is already running long, so we're going to rearrange stuff a bit and just jump right into Fate Strange Fake right now. It's the new Fate entry by A1 Pictures, I believe. I'm not sure who the director is, but I'll have to look it up. And I think this is based on a light novel, but I'm not sure. I really liked the aesthetic of it, and I liked the first episode preview from last year. I believe that was last year. No, I think it was 2 years ago, actually. In any case, yeah, let's watch some Fate.
Okay, that is definitely the most chaotic Fate anime that I have seen so far. Just finished up Fate Strange Fake. Definitely not a good entry point for this franchise. If you're new to Fate, don't start here, because this is the Fate entry where they are just breaking as many rules as they possibly fucking can. And also, there's just stuff that, unless you are like source material readers, you're just not going to know. Like, there is some stuff in here that I do not understand because I am an anime only. And that's fine. It's still perfectly watchable in that regard, but it does require you to pay a lot of attention. I have not read the visual novel, I have not read any of the manga adaptations, and I have not read any of the light novels. I have seen Dean Stay Night, Zero, Unlimited Blade Works, Heaven's Feel. Did not watch much of Last Encore, or whatever that one was called. Fate Extra, that one. I did not see much of that. Haven't seen Apocrypha, and I watched the first season of Collide Liner. And also, I've only seen like the first episode of Grand Order. Have not seen much of that at all. So the wider Fate-verse, I don't really know much about. But this one supposedly takes place in a timeline after the Fourth Holy Grail War. So after Zero. I don't know if the Fifth Holy Grail War exists in this timeline. They do mention Tosaka at some point, but they don't mention her as a survivor of the Fifth Holy Grail War. So, unsure as to the exact timeline, but the Fourth Holy Grail War for sure exists because we actually get a whole flashback to events in Fate Zero for certain characters in this. So if you haven't seen, well, I guess, yeah, if you haven't seen Fate Zero, this show spoils Fate Zero. So definitely go watch Fate Zero before you watch this. In fact, I would say you should watch a lot of Fate Stay Night before you watch this. But you know what? Once you do, and you get a sense for how this world functions, and just do some general, I guess, casual wiki browsing, maybe, if something is like eluding you. Normally, I don't suggest that ever, but if you don't want to read a 100-hour visual novel, and you're just like, hey, what is that one thing? That's what the wiki's for. But I did really like the complicated nature of this entry, and just the sheer amount of that rule that you thought about this franchise, about how this world works. Fuck you, we're breaking it. And this is how we broke it. Or, and sometimes it's, hey, here's a rule. That's a rule? Okay. Okay, cool, that's a rule. Yeah, well, we're breaking that rule. Okay, cool. Like, I didn't know that you... First of all, I didn't know that gods existed in the world of Fate. And secondly, I didn't know that you couldn't summon gods as servants. But apparently they broke that rule somehow. I don't 100% understand how, but that's just one of the many things where it's just like, what if this? What if a god? What if the concept of death as a servant? One of the fucking horsemen of the apocalypse. I'm like, that's rad as shit. Go off, man. Go ahead and do that. Apparently this light novel was written by Ryogo Narita, you know, the Bakano and Durarara guy. So, that tracks with how many fucking characters there are to keep track of and how complicated it's all getting. Because it's like, we're essentially getting double the amount of servants. I don't think we've reached that number yet. But that's because it's like, the American government starts a fake Holy Grail war in the United States for the purpose of leading to the summoning of the actual Holy Grail so that the government can acquire it, which is the most fucking American thing that I've ever heard. While we're on that subject, there is one thing that I want to briefly touch on in this, and it leads into a wider point about the characters, I guess, but this show has a much higher opinion of cops than I do. That's a nice way of putting it. Like, there's a whole section of, there's a whole, like, squad of characters that are just cops. They're mages, but they are also American police officers. Like, they explicitly say that several times, and they talk about how noble it is, and how they want to uphold their duty as cops. And, man, if you haven't been following the news for the past 6 years, 12 years, you might not know why I'm not on board with that, but, there's some mild propaganda going on in this. Like, oh, government bad, but cops good. That's usually how a lot of propaganda goes. Actually, it's the blandest form and the easiest to take in, because it's like an easy way to deflect, I guess. But also, I'm not sure where it's all going in the end anyway. Government certainly does some bad things in this, but I just found it very funny that one of the main moral quandaries in this series is that, like, a 9-year-old girl summons a servant that could essentially destroy the entirety of reality, and so the question is whether or not do we kill this little girl. And a bunch of the characters are American cops. And I have to pretend watching this show like the cops would not immediately go, yeah, kill the girl. Do it. Anyway, that's my rant about that. But it leads into a broader point I have where the characters are fine, but not a lot of them that I particularly enjoy. Or not enjoy, but there's not a lot of them that I love in particular. Like, I didn't realize it until the very end with Sigma's new declaration. Sigma being this child soldier character. Until his declaration at the end of this that he wants to destroy the Holy Grail War itself. I didn't realize until the very end of this series that I wasn't really rooting for anyone. Like, I didn't really care who won. Like, there were certain characters that I didn't want to win because they're just bastards, like the fucking vampire character. But although I did like his servant a lot, I don't exactly understand how that works. But in any case, or is that assassin character his servant? That's what I thought it was. Maybe I'm mistaken. But anyway, while there were definitely some characters where I'm like, I don't want you to win, there really wasn't any characters where it was like, I want you to win. Until, like, the very end with Sigma, who, utterly disgusted at that little girl's parents just essentially using her as an experiment to summon this uber powerful servant. So, rooting for him now. And he may or may not be the love child of Kiritsugu and that one lady he cheated on his wife with. I think that's the implication at the end of this. Because he says, like, oh, my mother was an assistant to a mercenary in the last war. I'm like, well, that describes Kiritsugu almost exactly. So, that's interesting. Maybe it's not necessarily Kiritsugu's kid, and it's just a kid that she had with someone else. I think it's a little more interesting if it's Kiritsugu's kid. But yeah. But I did like a lot of the characters. They were generally very fun. I love the new Saber for this, Richard the Lionheart. Just his, like, almost otaku-ish obsession with King Arthur. I really he's just so fun and peppy and happy and just charismatic. And that's another way where the Holy Grail War is just sort of breaking, where it's like he just immediately gets on camera in front of, like, the whole world and apologizes for destroying an opera house. Like, yeah, so much for the secrecy thing. So really enjoyed him. His master, Ayaka Sajo, is complicated in that she's not the Ayaka that we are following for the entire series. Apparently, is not the real Ayaka. That person is just wandering around Romania somewhere. And so there's this whole mystery about who this character is. Why is she being haunted by this specter of Little Red Riding Hood or something? What connection? We see that she has connections to Kotomine and Gilgamesh from potentially the fifth Holy Grail War, maybe the fourth, probably the fourth. I guess the timing would probably put it, based on her age, I feel like the timing would put it as her at the fifth for her being that age, because it's like this takes place in 2009-ish, if I recall correctly. They don't say it in the show, but that was just me, like, reading up on it. So that's like 4 or 5 years after Fate's Day Night, I believe. Uh, maybe? I don't know. But, where was I going? So, the entirety of her character is surrounded in mystery, and it's an intriguing mystery. I am interested in seeing where it goes, except for the fact that she also goes through a character arc of not running away, I guess, from either responsibility or from her relationship with Saber or stuff like that. And she goes through all the steps that you would expect from an arc like that, but we don't know what she's running away from. We complete that character arc for her without knowing why that character arc exists. So it kind of loses its efficacy. It doesn't really do anything. It just doesn't really have an effect. Also, I should mention, I did not rewatch Whispers of Dawn before starting this. That was in 2024, I believe. I vaguely remember all the things that happened in it, and as I watched more of this show, I remembered more of the stuff that happened in it with, like, Jack the Ripper and Faldius and stuff. But I don't think I really needed to. This was fine as is. But yeah, there's not a lot of characters that I'm particularly like. I'm really interested in where your arc is going. Like, except for Sigma at this point, because like one of the characters that I thought was going to be really interesting and had a lot of potential just gets domed at the very end of this series from some sniper who is apparently working for Faldius. I won't tell you who gets domed, but it's a little bit disappointing. And I say disappointing and not like shocking or heartbreaking or anything, because it's also like, yeah, this also wasn't a character that was going through a particular arc, so I'm not that upset, I guess. Also, weird discrepancy, I guess, where during the flashback to the Banquet of Kings in Fate Zero, Lionheart refers to the writer character as Alexander the Great, where I distinctly remember, like, he says Alexander Dio, so Great King, but I distinctly remember him being called Iskander in Fate Zero. So, weird discrepancy there, I guess. I know it's the same thing, but it's just kind of weird to me that the show itself would use a different name. I don't know. Maybe that's just because... Maybe that's how England knows him, I guess, and so that's how Richard would refer to him. I don't know. Yeah. Weird discrepancy there. Anyway, this show is also really dang good looking. I love the flatness yet richness of the color design. Character designs are really solid. This does not look like Ufotable Fate at all. Really, really strong action scenes. I do wish there was a little bit more weight to some of the impacts. They're not weightless, but I do think they could have used like a little bit more oomph to some of the big hits. Because like otherwise, it's fantastically animated. There's some noble phantasms in this that I would describe as like truly like deserving of the word epic. There are some epic, monstrous things happening in the action scenes here. Let's like the Alcides fight, him versus Jack the Ripper, and then him versus who else? I already forgot who he was fighting. Fuck. There was another big fight with him fighting someone else that I really enjoyed. It might have been Ishtar, but I'm not sure. Yeah, really, really solid action animation. I will say though, of like the big action titles from this season though, like in any other season this would like mop the floor with everything else. This would have been easily the best production of the season. But this landed in a season with Free Run Season 2, Sentenced to be a Hero, and the new Jujutsu Kaisen season. And I think of those four, I think I like this one the least. Even in terms of like the action, I think I like this one the least. Maybe better than Free Run. Yeah, maybe better than Free Run. But it's just wild to me how many immensely high profile and high quality action anime we are getting this season. We are eating fucking good. Love the color, and yeah, just in general, I love the color design. Very rich, haunting, threatening colors, as is customary with Fate. I like it. I like how this looks. And, yeah, that's really all I got, I think. Hiroyuki Sawano is just being Hiroyuki Sawano. I've started to not like his soundtracks quite as much. They're very basic. I think I would have preferred something a little more orchestral, I guess, for this. Although some of the weird rap stuff in it does fit kind of well in certain spots. But yeah, this was a solid show. I don't think they've announced the second season yet. I'll probably be tuning in for the second season, just out of sheer curiosity for where the mystery's going. But I do hope that there's a little bit more meat to the characters in the next parts. And yeah, if another season gets announced, I will be looking forward to it.
Alright, Fate Strange Fake is complete. And you're going in the number 7 spot with a strong 7. Solid showing. Could have been a little better, but overall, solid showing.